Right. Well, first of all, Luke, we are so grateful that you've chosen to spend some of your precious time with us. We know that you're a busy guy and that especially in the campaign world, there's not a lot of extra time and we are grateful to get to know you a little bit better and give our members a little bit a chance to get to know you a little bit better. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited and honored to be invited to this forum. So really appreciate it.
Great, thank you. So the way this is going to go is I will turn the time over to Lonnie. He will give a little spiel and then he'll give you a couple of minutes to introduce yourself. And then I will ask, we have 5 questions, business related questions, and you'll have 2 minutes to answer each of those. You can see the timer here. And it beeps when the time runs out.
Okay.
You don't have to take the full 2 minutes, but feel free to. And then I do also, I've got the questions posted in the chat there that you can reference if you're talking and you sometimes you just need a refresher of, what the question is. Those are in the chat if you can see those. And yeah, and then once we're done, we'll turn the time back over to Lonnie. So
okay, great.
All right, go for
it.
Luke.
Lonnie. Again, thank you for joining us. As you may or may not know, the Chamber of Commerce has the interest of the local businesses at heart. So we based all of these questions on topics that we think the businesses in town would be interested in hearing. We do ask that you try to keep your answers focused to the business community. Mm-hmm. As Lacey said, we do ask you to keep it to 2 minutes so it keeps it fair for all the candidates. We are interested in hearing what you've got to say. So with that, we're going to just go ahead and start with a quick 2-minute introduction of yourself.
Okay, yeah, so my name is Luke Wojciechowski. I know that last name is quite a mouthful. My dad's a real estate agent back in Chicago, and one of his clients came up with Wojciechowski to help you remember it. So hopefully that sticks a little bit better. But yeah, I've been in Moab for a little over 5 years, and I know that's not a long time relative to a lot of like the locals out here. But from the day that I got here, it's really been kind of about compassion and commitment to the community. The day after I drove into town, I started my first day at Seek Haven, where I started off as the shelter manager and most recently was the deputy executive director. I'm currently the grant finance manager at the hospital, trying to get the behavioral health, mental health, and substance use program off the ground, and have done a lot of volunteerism throughout the community. Got a lot of experience managing public funds for the good of the community with my work at Seek Haven, which is primarily funded by state and federal grant money. And the current program that the hospital, or that I'm working at the hospital, is mostly funded by SAMHSA, so the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Act grant funding, and also pretty sizable funding from GOED, the Governor's Office of Economic Development grant. I think in a lot of that job, I've really learned the importance of collaboration and listening. Seek Haven offers a ton of wonderful services, but we frequently say that the most important service we provide is listening, largely based on the belief that clients are the experts of their own situation. So that's something that I've carried forward in my experience on the City Planning Commission, which I've been on for just a little bit under 2 years on. We receive a lot of input from the business community, whether it be commissioners or the applicants themselves. And I very much consider them to be the subject matter experts. And so what they say holds a lot of weight as I try to make an informed decision and try to balance the interests of everybody involved and do what's best for the community at large.
Great. Thank you. All right, so we're going to go ahead with these questions here. The first question I've got is, what role do you think our local government should play in the growth and development of local business?
I think this is kind of a multifaceted answer, particularly with the situation that Moab's facing right now. With the housing crisis, I think government should try to look out for the established businesses that are really struggling to hire. Everywhere that I look, there are help wanted signs, there's job postings all over the internet on Facebook. And so right now we need to make sure that we take care of what we have here, so that the local business owners who have put up a lot to try to establish organizations and employment for other local members of our community, that they can kind of stay afloat, really. But at the end of it, I think once we are able to stabilize our local workforce, I think it does make sense to see if we can kind of diversify our economy a little bit, so that if we ever have another calamitous event, God forbid we do, like the pandemic that hit us, having one industry that is so reliant on tourism and travel into the community, which subsequently affects how much revenue the city brings and makes us able to provide a lot of needed services to the community, aren't completely hindered. So yeah, I don't know that it should be like a super heavy-handed approach when it can be avoided, but I think government can do a lot in terms of supporting local business.
Great, thank you. All right, second question. Given the recent budget deficit discussions at the city, what are your ideas on how to optimize the budget to benefit our community now, as well as set us up for the future?
Yeah, this is something that I've got experience in with working with Haven, and I'm going to be getting a lot more experience with at the hospital, is that we're entrusted with public funds. And so we have to use those wisely and try to maximize the amount of good that we can provide to the community with the limited resources that we have. And so at Haven, that very frequently involved us kind of doing an analysis and seeing where we thought money was being used wisely and where we maybe could have like tightened things up a little bit. So I think that's an important thing for the city to do. And I think another important thing for the city to do is to identify other potential revenue streams. I'm not necessarily talking about a property tax, because I know that's like a big worry, but coming from grant funded organizations, I do understand that there is a lot of money out there. And so potentially, rather than just having somebody in the department looking out for grants that might fall in line with them, having a specific like grant coordinator position within City Hall. I get that that's a little bit more salary and adds a little bit more to the budget, but I kind of look at it from the perspective of sometimes it takes money to make money. And we wouldn't be making money here, but we'd be bringing in money that can hopefully alleviate some of the budget deficits that the city is facing, and can help kind of address some of the more immediate concerns. And then, yeah, long term, I think we do need to make sure that we build up our rainy day fund, so that if some sort of situation does arise again, that we're prepared for it. Particularly with the state of a lot of our infrastructure and everything, like you never know when something bad can happen. And a lot of times those reactive approaches to things end up costing a bit more to resolve than more proactive approaches.
Great, thank you. All right, the third question is, in the business community, we are seeing similar problems with commercial space as we are in residential, in terms of affordability and availability, making it difficult for new and or diversified businesses to establish themselves. What are your thoughts on possible solutions for this issue?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question, and it's one that's kind of been fleshed out more and more for me as I've been canvassing around the neighborhoods. I actually just a couple of days ago had what ended up being like, I think, a 2-hour-long conversation with a gentleman who said that he's actually trying to establish his own business right now. And based on some of the codes that are out there and everything, because he potentially might have a retail sale every once in a while, he is required to try to have a retail commercial space. As mentioned in this question, like that's not available. And if it is, it's completely cost prohibitive. And so it's forcing a lot of people who are looking at starting up new businesses to potentially put up at risk a lot more than they might be willing to. And so I think some of these outdated codes, similar to a lot of our outdated zoning laws and codes that I've seen on the Planning Commission, are really kind of preventing the development of housing and commercial space that can benefit the community and are also preventing some business owners from really trying to take that risk of starting up a new enterprise for themselves. And it's kind of getting in the way of the stated goal of current and past governments of diversifying our economy. So I think kind of addressing some of those things would be a good first step.
Great, thank you. All right, the fourth question we've got for you, Luke, is in our city, there are divides between opinions, particularly around our economy. How have you found compromise and built unity in the past? And how do you plan on doing that in the future, specifically with the economic growth of Moab?
That's a good question, tough question. Oops, sorry, I just spilled some water. But working in a nonprofit, we all kind of have to stay within our own field. There's like always the risk of scope creep. And so that's really kind of fostered an air of collaboration amongst the nonprofits within the community, where we all kind of recognize that collectively we can do a lot more to impact positive change for the community at large. And that's something that I'd like to be able to carry forward in this position. I know everybody has their own personal interests and everything like that, but I live in the sweat equity homes in Benina across from Power Dam. And when the fire came through and I drove into my neighborhood, I saw a flood of people with shovels and pitchforks and hoses strung over their shoulders. At Sea Haven, when we ever had clients or families that needed supplies or materials or anything like that, the community came out to help. And so one of the things that I've recognized is that whenever there are serious issues facing the community or members or portions of our community, Moab comes together in support of itself. And so I think in those moments, we're very good at setting aside our differences and trying to identify ways in which we can work together to promote kind of a more long-term sustainable productivity and positivity. And so I'm hoping that that's something that we can do in this regard. I know that there's a lot of kind of divisiveness within that, but I also don't believe that solutions necessarily have to be combative. I think there can be solutions that can be identified that don't necessarily 100% meet the desires of everybody involved, but there are common grounds that can address a lot of the concerns from a lot of different aspects of our community.
Great, that was like on the dot. Thank you. Okay, our last question is, economic diversification of Moab's tourism-based economy has been the topic of many local government discussions. What would your approach to diversification be in relation to the current established industry?
Once again, another kind of like multifaceted, tough question, but a good one, and one that we're definitely going to have to focus on a lot as the community moves forward. I think even within the economic diversification, even within the tourism industry, we need to make sure that there's diversity within there. I've talked to a couple of staff members at like bike shops and everything, and they've said that they've had clients who have said that they feel as though some of like the UTV industry has taken over the community and it's making them less willing to come back to Moab. And so I think that's something that we need to be mindful of. But I also think that we need to be mindful of the positions that we can't fill right now in the community. Right now, the hospital has a ton of openings. We're struggling to hire law enforcement. We're struggling to hire teachers and all of that stuff. And so these are a lot of the positions in the community that are really here to help make sure that the community is well as a whole. And so I think that economic diversification from my perspective is kind of like adding like a second level to your home. It's great. It opens up a whole lot of other opportunities and everything, but how good is it really going to be if our foundation is crumbling? And I really kind of feel that right now we need to make sure that we address some of these fundamental parts of our community that are really starting to get stretched thin. And that includes the tourism industry, where businesses are struggling to hire for people. And right now it's the tourism industry that is keeping this entire economy in town afloat. And so if we're not addressing things largely through housing and everything like that, I think everybody's in jeopardy, and kind of looking at the broader economic diversification is kind of putting the cart before the horse a little bit. Great,
thank you. All right, I am all done with the hard part. And Lonnie's, I'm going to turn the time over to Lonnie for you.
Well, thank you, Luke. Great answers. We're going to kind of finish this up with one question that I've asked everyone to give us a minute answer on. And it's pretty simple. It's, why do you think the business community should vote for you?
And this one's 1 minute.
Okay. I'm really terrible at, or I don't like selling myself. But a large part of it is that I really care about the community. Working with the clients that I have at Seahaven and that I will be working with at the new program, I've recognized that there's a significant portion of the community that really hasn't had a voice in the broader conversation as to the direction in which this community is going. And I want to help elevate those voices. And I feel that that holds true to a very significant portion of our community that isn't seeking services at organizations like Seahaven and anything like that. And kind of leaning back on the whole, I believe that listening is sometimes the most important thing, so that we can get as good of and complete understanding of the entire situation at large, so that we can make decisions that really take the entire community into consideration when we make those decisions. So I think that's kind of my big point.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. We will, so as soon as everybody's had a chance to do one of these interviews, we'll go ahead and release them all at the same time. And we'll put them on our website, share them through social media, and through the chamber has an email blast that we send out to members. And so that's kind of how it will get out there. But I will definitely let you know when we're doing that, so that you can access those as well. And yeah, if you have any questions or anything that the chamber can do for you in the meantime, just let me know.
Absolutely, will do. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Great. All right. Thanks, Luke.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.